Hello. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Hikaru. I'm a Wolfboy VTuber. This is going to be a tier list for IDV hunters, and we'll do the survivor one right after as well. It's going to be in a separate video, but we're going to start off with the hunter one. As you can see, I was a Hydra level hunter last season and a few seasons ago as well. Right now I'm only Evil Ogre because I haven't been doing a ton of ranked games lately. I've also been balancing between Survivor and Hunter, and I've been doing a lot of ranked 5s. So that's where I'm at right now. Keep in mind that these are from the hunters. I don't play every single hunter, but I have played every hunter at least a couple of times. So I do know about how well they play. I also do play Survivor a little bit, although this is from my perspective as a hunter. Axe Boy, I'm going to put in probably B tier. Like, I don't think Axe Boy is that great. He's got a lot of counters: entomologist, patient, anyone that can like just get away from him pretty quickly. His Happy Rose is pretty decent, but I just think that there are hunters out there that are stronger, and there's some survivors out there who are really good at dodging. So keep in mind that this tier list is for probably Hydras and or Dragon tiers. Axe Boy doesn't have a lot of extra things he can work with at first presence. He does have a lot of flames, yes, but survivors can destroy the trees actually pretty quickly. And if he doesn't have any trees, he doesn't have any spirits. He doesn't have any spirits, he can't really pull them into himself, can't do damage with it, can't get his speed up. He essentially has nothing much at first presence. So he has to land a lot, at least like one of them in his first chase for him to be very good. Bloody Queen, I'm just gonna give her she's the Thai queen, honestly. Like, so I'm giving her S tier, or like, you know, it's probably better if I put her in A tier because she is really good at guaranteeing ties. There's a reason that they call her the Thai queen. It's because she's very good at getting at least a tie. Her mirror walks through walls, so she doesn't have to deal with a lot of the kiting shenanigans that a lot of survivors have to deal with. Some still do counter her, like Patient and like Toy Merchant and stuff like that, but like Toy Merchant honestly counters everyone. So like Bloody Queen I think is still a really strong pick if you're looking to get a tie. She's banned quite often in upper ranks, so I would just be careful of that. I think that she's like a fully built out hunter at 0 presence. Essentially her mirror is all she needs to do all of her hunting, and even though she's single hit, if she gets a hit on you from like a wanted order or like just a regular hit from you're not paying attention, it can be pretty fatal. The distance of the mirror is a little bit hard to judge, but a good Bloody Queen is going to know like exactly where you're at. Plus it reveals her location, so it's very hard to hide from her, especially when she's walking through rocks and walls and stuff like that. Clerk, S tier. I think Clerk is definitely S tier. Not just because I play her, but she's for sure one of the best hunters in the game right now. Her cipher pressure is incredibly strong. She can look at every cipher from across the map. She can record survivors that makes them drop the pallet. It might be a little bit difficult at first, and some survivors are pretty decent against her, such as like Acrobat or Entomologist or something that's like just decent at kiting without needing the use of pallets. But if she just walks through most things and like force you to drop a pallet, then you're gonna have to do it either way. It's just a matter of how well that pallet drops is, or if you need to vault a window or something like that. At upper ranks, a lot of survivors are really good at managing like what you have, so they'll know, especially if they're communication with each other, if you have like a pallet drop or a window vault or a pallet break or stuff like that. But regardless, like her cipher pressure is so good, especially mid to late game, and her detention hits are also really incredibly strong. Yeah, I highly recommend people who clerk for like more advanced hunters, because you do have to know the layout of the map very well to play her well. If you don't know where the pallets are or don't know where the windows are, you have to predict them like 3 seconds in advance. Otherwise, it might be a bad time. That being said, I have been kited out by a couple of types of survivors, so just keep in mind like the count. I think like this latest season, the tier list, like as I've evolved as a hunter, it's more about the counters of the survivors than it is about the base kit of the hunters themselves. So what I mean by that is when you're playing a hunter, you want to keep in mind who the survivors are, because you can see them but they can't see you, so you're almost always the last pick. If I see like an entomologist, an acrobat, a patient, typically I probably wouldn't play Clerk. Maybe something better in that situation might be like a Bonbon or a Breaking Wheel, depending on the map. Yeah, Clerk has her situations. Let's see. Anne, I would give Anne A tier. She's a great tie hunter, also really easy to use. But again, if survivors are just really good about dodging her abilities or know how to counter her double cats, then she's essentially just going to get a tie. Her chase is really strong, her camping really strong, but the problem that a lot of hunters have that don't put them on S tier is that they're really weak at cipher pressure. And if you don't have good cipher pressure, you're just gonna, like, at most you get a tie. Because like Bloody Queen, she can pressure one cipher, but if it's not the right cipher, or if there's not one close enough, she's still not able to get a tie. But and it's even harder on her part, because at most she can stop you from decoding. But the decoding time lost based on her cats is like maybe 10 seconds, and it's one cipher. They can just change ciphers later on or dodge the cat. She has to keep the cats. She can either, one, use her cat ability to lock down the cipher, or two, use it to double hit the survivors coming for rescue. And so, like, I've played Anne a lot recently, and she's really fun, but she has a lot of trouble being a single hit hunter if she can't scuff a rescue. That's essentially her strength. And yeah, the same situation kind of goes for Bloody Queen as well. Next, Dream Witch. S-tier hunter. Wow, all the S-tier hunters are pretty high up there. Yeah, Dream Witch, I wish I was better at her. She's clearly a mobile hunter, because the switching the character wheel, I don't know. It's pretty difficult to do on PC, but I can still do it to some extent. I think she's really strong. She's one of the few hunters that, like, you can't kite either. And she's also good at pressuring ciphers. So she's essentially like, she plays different from Bloody Queen, but she can pressure ciphers from across the map by just sending a leech down there. She can chase multiple survivors at the same time. And that is the best type of pressure you can put on someone. She can camp a chair and put pressure on someone. If Dream Witch gets his character down in the basement, it's essentially doomed for them, because she keeps one leech at the top of the basement, one leech at the bottom of the basement, and that's 2 hits. Like, you're going down no matter what, unless you're a mercenary. But even if you don't like die from the drop hit, you're dying from whoever's the leech in the basement. Secondly, she doesn't have to, like, she can scout you out with her main body while there's 2 leeches down there. Like, Dream Witch is clearly one of the strongest hunters out there. So I'm probably going to put her above Clerk. Like, the positioning of these don't really matter too much, but I do think Dream Witch is the strongest hunter in the game, hands down. You do have to know how to play her really well, though. And knowing her, you have to know the layout of the map more than anything else. I think that the layout of the map is really important to know for hunter side things, especially hunters that need to predict things. Like, where you think they're going to be kiting at is really important for Dream Witch, because you want to push them into a location and box them in so that they can't escape without taking a hit. Haster, I'm going to give him a B tier. I feel like no one really plays Haster at higher tier. I see a couple of them, but like most survivors know how to kite Haster. It's really unfortunate that, like, he needs line of sight before he has full presence to swing his tentacles. A lot of people know how to dodge too. You do the little, like, circle thing around the base of the tentacle. It can do it. Also, a lot of survivors know that if you latch onto the tentacle, this is a really, like, suspicious thing that survivors can do, but they'll touch the tentacle while you're about to swing, and it cancels your swing and puts it on the 5-second cooldown. So, and they'll just let go afterwards, because you're in your attack animation. They'll get a free rescue off of that. It's really strong, especially if you try to, like, chair camp with a tentacle. They can just get rid of the tentacle. Not to mention, Antiquarian can break it with her swing. So, like, Haster, it's a big problem trying to catch people. When he's at 0, like, by the time he gets enough tentacles to down someone, if assuming if you get an early tentacle hit, you're golden. But if not, you're doomed. Like, Haster relies so much on his tentacles that, like, yes, the long hitbox is nice, but if he doesn't have tentacles, like, that's his thing. He needs it to make it work. Or if you're trying to interact with him, it cancels the ability and it puts it on cooldown. I don't know if that's a server maintenance thing or, like, something that was designed for the game, but higher ranked survivors know exactly what you're going to do, and they can predict those pretty easily. That being said, he does have a nice hitbox rate. He's not completely useless. There are situations where you can spawn the tentacle and make it so that they can't avoid it. Like they'll dodge into you and take the basic hit, allowing them to transition. Not to mention that when you spawn the tentacle itself, usually, I do say usually, survivors will react in time and either like walk away from it or figure out a way to dodge it. But the tentacle takes a long time to spawn and use. So I think it's at least a good 2 seconds for them to make that decision. So you spawn the tentacle, that's 1 second. You swing, that's another second. So by that time, like the survivor might already be out of range. 2 seconds is a lot of time when you're chasing a survivor. So Haster, he's good at camping. His chasing needs a little bit of work. Some places you want to avoid as him are like the ruins areas where you can't see completely over the walls, because it makes it harder for you to use your tentacles. Even though there's more spaces to cut people off, if you can't use the tentacle in the first place, they're pretty much useless. Gamekeeper, I put him on B tier as well. I think that Gamekeeper is okay. He's good at countering some people. Like, his traps are pretty strong for anti-looping. His hook is really strong about catching people off guard. But a good survivor in upper ranks who always look back at the hunter, they are so good at dodging. Like, it is crazy. I'm a Bonbon main, and I've seen people like, ooh, they wiggle out of everything. It's crazy. Isn't he just a TIE hunter? To a certain extent, I think he's a little bit worse than the TIE hunter, because his ability is like, it's a little harder to use than like Mary's. First things first, he has 0 cipher pressure. Like, his cipher pressure is atrocious. He can maybe cut off 1 cipher if he's close enough to it, and not even completely. He would have to get off the chair that he's camping to do it. You can't put traps on people who are chaired. Like, you can't put it directly on top of the chair. There's a good radius around that chair where you can't put the trap. So, like, he can prevent looping, but he can't really camp that great. If he can get a terror shot, good for him. If he slows you down, good for him. But he's a single hit hunter, and until he gets full presence, he's kind of a little lame. So, like, the hook is great and all, but there's just a lot of hunters out there who, they don't need to hit you from like your look. It's got a good delay on it, and you can see it coming. If you're looking back and it's telegraphed, like, you're gonna see it coming. Not to mention, if you're already in that cutting location, like trying to play Gamekeeper in ruins, good luck. You're not getting a hit there unless you like trap up the whole thing, and survivors already looped you through it. So, like, a common situation is that like you spend your whole time chasing one survivor in, say, like hospital ruins, and the one by shack. You put all your tentacles, your traps, your bombs, whatever, but they just leave the area afterwards, and you get 1 hit off of them because they take a basic hit and they transition somewhere else. So you spent all your resources there to get 1 hit, and they already left. That's about like 40 to 50 seconds already. So by that time, if you can cut 40 to 60 seconds, it guarantees a tie. Almost always, like at higher ranks especially, unless you can scuff a rescue, which is kind of difficult for Gamekeeper. Haster, you can kind of do it a little bit, but yeah, I don't think Gamekeeper is that great. His attack hitbox is not great either. He falls for pallet baits a lot. Yeah, I mean, his other abilities are okay, but all in all, I don't think he's that great of a hunter. Bonbon A tier. Bonbon's really good at chasing. I do main Bonbon, and if you get the snipes in, oof, it feels really good, but he lacks, his one thing is probably cipher pressure. His cipher pressure is worse than Mary's and Anne's put together. Like, he can only camp out a cipher that's really close by to him, and even then he can't really like camp it out. And you, like, some survivors are really risky when they try to do a cipher like within his bomb range, but he expends all of his bombs trying to push out that cipher. Keep in mind that like when you chase someone as bomb and then you down someone, you put him on a chair, he only has 6 maximum bombs. And if you're not full presence, the generation is very, very low. So yeah, the Bonbon, I mean, it's really good for chasing. He's one of the hardest hunters to avoid kiting. Like, the time bomb is really good for double hitting. Or it's not for double hitting, but it's for like scuffing rescues, because most people don't expect which one. Although they can see it if you pull it out and you don't throw it right away. survivors at higher ranks are really good at dodging them, but if you're a good bonbon, you'll predict the prediction. And essentially you're taking a gamble at every change that you use. Like most of the time, bonbon needs 2 bombs to hit someone for their quarter damage. And since the bomb generation is so slow at the start of the game until you get the full presence, you might not have enough bombs to camp someone out and pressure a Cypher at the same time. Sometimes if you pressure a Cypher, you won't have enough bombs to camp. If you try to camp, you can't pressure the Cypher. Like, it's unfortunate that, like, I would say Bonbon's really good at getting that first down, but once he gets like into a camping situation, he's got to really focus hard on camping. There are some counters to him, like he gets stunned pretty easily, so a lot of bonbons might trump to excitement if they can. But all in all, like I think he's a really good hunter still. He can get a lot of great downs from across the map, or well, not from across the map. If he's a good sniper, he'll be able to land those. Just as like some good survivors will be able to predict them. There's some counters to him, like Enchantress. I don't really like playing Bonbon to Enchantress because each chip gives her a tick of her stack, and that's just a pain in the butt to deal with. Let's see. Toy Merchant is pretty good against Bonbon. Like I said, she's good against everyone. Yeah. But he's a pretty good counter to some survivors as well. He's really good against Perfumer, really good against Entomologist because it bombs both the Entomologist and her bees at the same time. He can scuff a mercenary rescue pretty well. Generally, making survivors panic is a good thing because when they panic, they start to make mistakes, especially during rescues. You put the pressure on them. All right, Geisha. I don't think Geisha's very good. I would put her on like bottom of B tier. I watched her in the Koa last year, and granted, Koa this year hasn't happened yet, but she has some crazy plays with her butterflies. She can fly up and go like through the hospital and some stuff like that. Like she has a lot of crazy plays, and she needs to play so incredibly aggressive just for her to maybe get a tie. When she was played in Koa last year, I think she lost like every single round except for maybe one where they were forced to do the rescue. Otherwise, their entire team would have lost anyways. So Geisha's really good at like putting pressure on survivors if she's just hella aggro. But again, like she's a single hit hunter, and she has a couple of counters too that are really, really bad for her. Like stun survivors are pretty good against her. Entomologists can slow her down while she's dashing. Yeah, she can get rushed down pretty easily. Like I feel like the amount of effort and work she has to do chasing down survivors is just way higher than any other hunter. Granted, she does it better than most hunters because she can get through pallets, but if there's like one mess up or like one juke from a survivor, it throws off your momentum and it makes Geisha kind of pointless. She's terrible at camping chairs. Like she gets maybe one hit, but like a lot of Geishas try to do the drop down double hit. I don't know anyone who ever gets hit by that. It's very rare because it's so slow. Plus, if you're in the air, like you can get shot by like a coordinator gun or something. It's just, I feel like Geisha needs to be a little bit more. If she's not like her hit recovery time is not good either compared to Clerks or Dream Witches. It's very slow, even if you take Berserker. I just don't think she's on par with some of the other hunters out there. She also can't pressure ciphers while she's camping. So I see a lot of Geishas just like they take teleport or abnormal and they just go. They just keep going and going and going and going. And that's kind of how you have to play Geisha well against higher tier survivors at least. So I just don't think yeah, she really works. But there's some cool tricks you can do with her. You can like go through walls and take survivors off guard. And catching people off guard is part of the hunter's kit. You need to be able to fake them out or mind game them. Not to mention her hitbox is atrocious. Is one of the worst in the game, I think. Hellenberg, I'm going to give him C tier. I don't think Hellenberg is that great. I think Hellenberg is kind of a bad hunter. I mean, he's very complicated to play. I don't know why he's the first one that they give you. Because the dolls, like, the dolls are okay. If you know how to throw them and do, like, the hit while transferring, it's fine. Like he's okay at really high when he has his full presence, but a lot of survivors will just like tap the doll and it turns them off for a rescue. It's so crazy, like how long it turns them off for. So, like the dolls are good, yes, but they're easily counterable by a lot of the survivors. Like, first of all, he's really bad without presence. Like he needs to be chasing for a long time just to get his ember going. And the ember isn't always great. You have to know when to use the ember in which situations. So if you're kiting in like say church and someone's looping you around the church, like the middle part of church with the two windows on both sides, the ember's not going to do anything there. The ember is only good for cutting off survivors if you get them in a situation where they need to drop a pallet and they box themselves in. And even then, if they flywheel it, you're not going to have anything. You're kind of relying on your flash or your teleport or whatever you got. So yeah, if you can just cut out like the first section of a Hell Ember, they just can't really do much. I feel like it's really easy to get at least a draw against a Hell Ember. Because and even he can't really, he can pressure ciphers a little bit with his dolls, but again, if they can just take down the dolls and you can't teleport to her, nothing. So Hell Ember, fairly weak hunter. He's my first hunter I'm going to put in C tier. Hermit, I just don't think Hermit's that great of a hunter. Like a lot of people ban him. I think it's just because people don't understand how to deal with him. He's good against people who are uncoordinated, but at higher ranks, I feel like everybody is coordinated. I know for a fact that there's a secret survivor Discord out there for higher ranked survivors that when they do ranked queues in the morning or afternoon or evening, they just all go into the secret Discord and they all talk to each other. So even if they're just allowed to queue in two stacks of two, because like at Alicorn and above, you can only queue with one other person. They go into the secret Discord to meet up with their other friends and they just queue at the same time because the community is quite small. But they'll tell each other like, oh, I'm switching to blue or I'm switching to red. It's the most obnoxious thing ever. So like, yeah, Hermit at like, if you get someone to 99% of their health down, like, and everyone switches off the color, you have to land an entire another hit on them and you lose 1.1% of your damage. Like, that's an entire hit and then some. So it's just like, Hermit has a lot of issues. His chase is okay, but there's a lot of places that are really bad for him to chase, and he can be juked out too. His aiming is okay if you know how to aim it with it. It's kind of, people use the staff when you point aim, but they use their head if you're like quick shotting. And I've seen survivors like juke out hermits like crazy. So if you know how he works, like you can delay a hermit for quite a long time. And like people say, hey, he's the only hunter that can prevent cypher rushing. No, he'll still get cypher rushed if people are on 3 different ciphers. Like, it makes it really quick. So if he doesn't get that early down and is able to like scuff a rescue or something like that, it's kind of scuff for him. That being said, he is strong at camping. He can do a double hit pretty easily if he catches you beforehand. But it might not matter because if you're trying to like do a rescue for them and the survivor's already at half health, if they're on the same charge as someone else, you can delay it for like a good 6 or 7 seconds. Yeah, but that person's gonna get the rescue off because he can take a free hit. So Hermit B tier, like his chasing, a lot of the presence or issues with these lower tier hunters is that they can't do anything without presence. Like they're very weak without it. So I mean, it's not the case for Geisha. Geisha is pretty much a complete hunter at the start, just like Mary, but so is Anne. But Hermit needs like his first presence ability, the teleport, to get real traction in the game. Otherwise, he's just too slow. His pallet breaking speed's really slow. Unless you're taking full berserker, it's pretty slow. His attack recovery rate, that is. Yeah, he doesn't feel good to play sometimes if you're just being kited at first presence. Joker, I would say Joker. I've kind of changed my mind about Joker a little bit. I've seen some really high tier Hydras play Joker well, and I don't know how they control it, but Joker is kind of a hassle. Like at higher ranks, he knows where to hunt, and he can chase you down pretty easily, and he's fast, and he is the permanent dash speed thing. Most Jokers are pretty good with that. If you're a Joker main, you know how to play Joker. So like their turn rate, the stuff like that, the double hit with he can use his ability to hit you once, avoid the recoil, and then just hit you again the second time. So he can double hit. His camping's pretty good. The only reason why he's not better is because his cipher pressuring is pretty bad. Like I have changed my mind a little bit about Joker after trying to kite him a few times. There are survivors who are really, really good at kiting him, but there's also survivors that are really bad at kiting him. A lot of ones that think they'll get away, but they don't. So like, you know how I constantly mention Toy Merchant because I'm a Toy Merchant main. For Toy Merchant, I think that she has a couple of issues with hunters that are really quick. So Wu Chang at first presence, he can move pretty quickly. Breaking Wheel doesn't really have a problem with Toy Merchant, unless she's using it to transition. Yeah, there's a couple who can just like get right on top of her after she uses her catapult. So, yeah. Let's see. Joker is one of those characters that can beat out Toy Merchant because he can just go to where she is. You have to really know his hitbox and his timings to be a good counter to Joker. His attack speed recovery is okay. It's just like the amount of pressure he puts on the map is really, really strong, especially if he has enough parts. If he collects enough parts, then like it's a little bit RNG, yeah, but the perpetual motion thing is the most OP thing that he just kind of keeps going. So yeah, I think Joker does have a place in A tier. This is just from like the perspective of like a survivor who's been caught by him a few times, but from a hunter's perspective, I think he's pretty boring to play. I don't really like Joker as a hunter, but I do admit he's not like a terrible hunter. Lucino, I don't think Lucino's very good. Like Lucino is probably C tier in my opinion. I don't think Lucino's that great of a hunter. His jumps are pretty meh. Like it doesn't do damage at the start, but it can get you from place to place. And if survivors just look back behind you, then you just avoid him completely. Like the drop down hits, I can't remember the last time I've been hit by that because it's so obviously telegraphed. The moment they go in the air, like you know they're going to drop down somewhere near you. So you just like, you get next to a pallet, you just drop the pallet instantly, and then you just continue your kiting or you use a kiting ability. He can get hits pretty easily and he can catch people by surprise. I don't think that most survivors, especially in the higher tiers, are afraid of Lucino. He's very simple hunter. Like he's got his 2 dashes, at full presence he gets 3, and he can do the slam down at first presence. Yeah, if you just look back and try to dodge his stuff, then he's pretty easy to avoid. Not much else needs to be said about Lucino. He's pretty straightforward. Without his first presence, he can't even do a double hit. He can try to scuff rescues, but it's really difficult for him. And like I said, like if you're not, you can't get into A or S tier without having some kind of cipher pressuring ability. So like you have to be at least able to pressure one cipher or at least be really, really good at one thing that you do. So he isn't particularly good at anything. He's okay at chasing. His camping is pretty meh. His cipher pressuring is non-existent. He's pretty much a C tier. Mad Eyes, I think Mad Eyes is pretty decent. It's just like no one knows how to play this dude. I hear he has a lot of problems with PC. He's really RNG. And plus like a good survivor like that can dodge the Mad Eyes abilities, like who just know how much wall he has left, where you can kite him from the walls from like one machine to another. Like once you know how Mad Eyes works, if you're a survivor that knows how he works, you're really good at countering him because you know like this is about how much wall he has. This is how much he can see me from this section to this section. So a lot of people will kite in between those 2 sections so that they'll avoid being walled in. Okay, next hunter, Naiad. I'm gonna put Naiad in A tier. Honestly, Patroller Naiad is pretty sick. The double hit is pretty awesome. I didn't used to run Patroller on her, but I'm thinking about doing it a lot more frequently now. It's really, really strong in a lot of situations. And I think that with Naiad is really, really strong at like preventing certain things from happening. She does have cipher pressure, but she can cut off like multiple ciphers with her water to prevent them from being decoded. She's really good at camping if you know how to play her well. With a patroller too, doing the double hits, she's really, really good at camping. And survivors tend to panic a lot when they try to rescue from her. So yeah, she's really strong. The moist maiden herself. That's right. Her harpoon gives her a lot of movement speed, so she's good at picking out survivors early. She's really good at chasing, I would say. Especially if she's got that patroller. She's good at camping. She's got cipher pressure. She's a whole package. The only thing I will have to say is that like Flywheel did get nerfed recently, but it's not great nerf. People can still flywheel the water. Like you can still flywheel a lot of things. I think pretty much anything. It was only balanced for a different mode, I think. So if someone flywheels the water, it resets them to 0. Like that's why she's not S tier. Otherwise, like she can be countered by a lot of stupid gimmicks. Plus transition kiting, like most people just transition away from her if she has that issue. She's not really great against stuns. She's not really good against entomologist. Like there's a lot of survivors that counter her that can just like leave the area that she's in and not come back to it. So I would say she's okay. She has her moments. She's really good at hunting in specific areas that she can flood out, especially if survivors are unsuspecting. Nightmare, this is the only hunter I'm going to put in D tier. Honestly, I think this is the worst hunter. I think Nightmare is just so incredibly bad. There's like nothing he's good at until it's just because like his he's so bad. Like his first presence ability is what he needs to get the ball rolling. Until he gets that first presence and like the free teleport, he's so incredibly weak. I think that like almost no survivor should be caught by this guy. He's weak to tight kiting. He takes forever just to charge that first thing. He's really easy to rescue from. Yeah, his chasing ability is just non-existent. Like it's just not good. So yeah, Nightmare I think is just, if you know how to deal with him, just like kite regularly or just have an ability, you will never be hit by this dude. He is just not good at catching people. And even when he does put a little bit of pressure on the map, he has to teleport away. That's not really cipher pressuring. It just slows down decoding for a bit otherwise. So if he leaves the chair, you're gonna get a free rescue off. If he doesn't leave the chair, then he's just camping with no camping ability. He's a single hit. Like all you could do is hope you could get a terror shock or something, or you got to play super aggressively like a geisha. But his teleport's like 40 seconds. Geisha's teleport is like 8 seconds. So plus, even if you get to the other cipher really quickly, you have to hit them twice. Like that's the new survivor that you're chasing. They're not damaged, and you have to chase them with your first presence ability, which does nothing. It doesn't even slow them down. Okay, Joseph, I think he's C tier. Honestly, like Joseph has the same problem Nightmare does, but at the very least, he has some things to deal with survivors. He does 75% damage to your health, or like I guess it's 125% because he chunks you. So he's pretty good against like mercenary and stuff like that. If he knows spawn locations, Joseph is typically a pretty good hunter. Like, and most of the upper tier Josephs do know where survivors are headed, but good survivors, you're pretty much taking a gamble of like, will he teleport onto me after photo world ends? He regresses all the ciphers, and it's just like, the one bad thing is like his chasing ability is also atrocious. He doesn't need to chase if he gets you down in the photo world and shares you, but then he has to find you in the real world, and it's really difficult. Yes, he does have an ability that can point him in the right direction, but he also still has to catch you. So assuming you don't like pick yourself up in time, especially if you just move to the incredibly other side of the map on time very fast, and you most likely, a lot of survivors will have a partner on them too. Sometimes they'll just priestess long portal over and heal them that way. Sometimes they'll have a doctor. Sometimes they'll just like they'll just have like another person next to them and heal them. And once they're up, you got to do that entire chase sequence, because yes, you only need one hit, but landing that one hit is incredibly difficult for Joseph. He breaks pallets pretty quickly, vaults windows pretty quickly, not quick enough. Like, yeah, Joseph, I feel like absolutely needs Blink. There aren't very many good locations for Joseph to hunt in. There are some where he can probably get away with not having Blink and just like doing an early teleport. But if your teleport play fails, you're doomed. Like, Joseph gets doomed pretty easily. His cipher pressure is okay. Like the camera turns off it regresses the ciphers, but like who cares? They'll just do it again. Because in that entire time, you're damaging people in the photo world. Yes, it's doing damage, but you're not even like that. It doesn't count as chasing someone. And there's 4 people decoding. So just because you regress it like 60% or like 40 to 60% or whatever it is, it's not enough. Like, they're just gonna do the whole thing because you're not chasing anybody while that's happening. If you are chasing someone, that's perfectly fine. But just keep in mind, you don't have any chasing abilities, so catching them is going to be a huge pain in the butt. Yeah, I mean, some people say that he can chase people with his card trick ability, but good survivors, they just know like where you're going back to. It depends on how long you flip the card for. The longer you flip the card for, the further back you go. And so like there's only a limit to how far back you can loop this person. Or like you can kite them before he starts to try and go back and hit you while going back. So a good survivor will just like, you can just transition. Not only like can you transition away from him, but you can also like just run. Like do a tight kite as well. He's weak to both until he gets full presence really. Another problem that he has is that if survivors go down in the photo world, their timer never starts until photo world ends. So if you're a survivor and you're getting caught and he just photo world started and they go down the photo world, like there's nothing that you can do about it. If you chair them in the photo world, they can still get rescued from there, but their timer doesn't start and it puts them on the ground. So you have to re-chair them again. Like, Joseph just has a couple of problems with him. Joseph really has to rely on jump scares early game. Yeah, you have to get lucky with your jump scare because you can't see what they look like moving in the real world. Some Josephs are really good if you know what you're doing to try and jump scare them, but like occasionally at the higher ranks, they'll usually have, especially if they're in communication with each other. I've seen this happen before, but survivors they'll send one person in the photo world to keep track of Joseph to let people know where he's at. And that's enough for you not to get jump scared by Joseph. Breaking Wheel, I give him like top of A tier. Honestly, the Flywheel's still really good against him. You can Flywheel his snap still. You can Flywheel his spikes. You can Flywheel his full presence spikes. You can Flywheel the snap. Yeah, it's just, he's not... There's a lot of good counters to him. Seer is really strong against him. You can just... He's really good at chasing. Don't get me wrong. Breaking Wheel is one of the strongest characters in the game. But ever since Flywheel came into effect, a lot of survivors, especially if they know it's a Breaking Wheel that take Flywheel, they'll know like you have to get an extra spike on them. And plus, Breaking Wheel, like if you can loop him while he's in his wheel form, you just do like a tight little circle around him. It's really difficult for him to get a chase off. So Breaking Wheels have to be like really good at guessing where the survivor is going to go. Essentially, you get like multiple, like 30% chances, 33% chances to guess right which direction they're going to go. So like if you're a Breaking Wheel and you're chasing a survivor and they're right in front of you, they can go straight, they can turn left, they can turn right. And you have like 0.5 seconds to make that decision. And if you guess wrong, you have 33% chance, then you're going to miss and you got to turn all the way around and then do it again. There's some locations that are just impossible for him. For example, the 2 areas by the big tent in Moonlit River Park, they're like, if they just keep vaulting those 2 windows, or like what are they called, twin walls or something like that, it's just really strong against him. Church, he's not really good in. There's a lot of trash on like Leo's Memory, Arms Factory. It's really hard to navigate with him. Or all of Hospital. Yeah, if you just like, the entirety of Hospital is bad for him. The 2 sides of Church are really bad for him. The God Kite on Church is really bad for him. There's a lot of places that are just like not really great for Breaking Wheel, and if survivors just make it over to there, it's impossible to get them out. And it, like, when they get there, not only is it impossible to catch them, but even if you get lucky enough to catch them, they'll just Flywheel it. At the higher ranks, like, they're really good at avoiding it. But he's like, I haven't had too much trouble chasing people with Breaking Wheel. Only at the very, very, very high ranks do they really have problems. I've seen Breaking Wheels get destroyed in Koa as well, so I don't think he's like super S tier. I put him like, nah, I put him like probably bottom of A tier. I put him even under Naiad because like I haven't taken him in too many really high ranking matches. It's just he's okay. He needs to have a way to deal with Flywheel, or like if survivors are really good at kiting him, he needs a way to deal with that. So yeah, but that's great. He's really good at pressuring ciphers because he just neumes. He can scuff rescues if he has if he's at full presence because he's got his spikes. Yeah, he can catch survivors off guard pretty easily when he goes that fast. Be careful you get motion sickness. He can give you a little motion sickness. Jack, B tier. I don't think Jack is terrible actually. Him being able to hit you through walls is kind of strong. Like throwing a foggy through a wall, I've been hit by it a couple times, and it's if it's like a peeper Jack, it's really kind of suspicious that he's able to do that to you. So I would just be really careful. Some survivors can predict it when they know where they're coming from, and they'll like lean away from the wall a little bit, but it gives them just enough time to like get to the next kiting area. Plus Jack is really fast once he gets first presence. And it's not too difficult to get it considering how his foggy comes up. If you're good at avoiding the foggy, or like he has this certain counters, which is like entomologist, her bees block one entire hit of foggy, which is really incredibly strong. There's some survivors that can just avoid him completely. Yeah, I feel like he can be really strong if he against certain comps. And once he gets to full presence, he's zooming. He's so strong. Yeah, like Breaking Wheel, he has also problems with Flywheel and stuff like that. I just think that like Jack, if you miss your first two foggies, you're doomed. Like that's it. A lot of survivors at high tier don't even get their rescue scuffed by Jack because they just know when you're gonna foggy them. His telegraph is a little bit too long, and what usually happens is they either flywheel it, one, or two, they'll run into the hunter and take the basic hit instead. So Jacks try to like back off when they do their basic hit, but if you back off, you might miss. So yeah, doing things as Jack, like once he gets his presence, he's okay. Like it takes a long time for that fog to turn on, so he goes invisible, but it makes him go fast. It's still like I think there's better options compared to other hunters. Galatea, honestly, I think she's still one of the strongest hunters out there. I have seen really good Galateas before. They're really incredibly strong if they can get you going through things. I'm starting to get used to her actually on PC. It just takes a long time to get used to her. She's really strong at, she can put pressure across the map with her sculpt, so she's got that check marked. She's pretty good at chasing. She's pretty much like a mid-tier, like she's not as good as Bonbon as chasing people down, but her cipher pressure more than makes up for it. She's really strong at chair camping too, because of the statues do push people, and at full presence, those statues are a nightmare to deal with. Because when they combine together, it's, if she knows what she's doing, she can almost guarantee a hit. Survivors have to do like a very unique motion. It's like a small spin around where the statue's created to avoid it. But by that time, if Galatea is close enough to you, she's gonna land a basic hit. Yeah, like the statues can hit you twice too. I've gotten multiple double hits with the same statue because of how tight the corners are sometimes. You can also use them to like block out entries to pallets and stuff like that. So all in all, I think Galatea is really strong. You don't really see her too much in the upper ranks because she's very difficult to play in PC, but on mobile she's a lot easier. You have to have a rhythm with her actions. For example, like Bonbons is like 1 1 1 1, but Galatea is like 2. Like if I can clap it out for you, it's like you got to go back to back with hers. Hers is a lot quicker than Bonbons to get her pacing correctly. It's like 1 2, right? But Bonbons is just 1 1 or 1 1. It's slower, and you can like kind of pace it out. Yeah, Galatea, she does have some problems, which is why like she's not really great if you can't predict the map. Some survivors are really good at adjusting to the statues, but like if you're a sculptor that knows like the backside of ruins, it can be a nightmare to kite a sculptor there, because she knows exactly where you are at all times, and she can hit you with those statues pretty easily. A lot of them will take like flash or teleport just to get that early first down. But yeah, with her chisel ability and her ability to, she can summon statues from across the map. Like that's strong enough. It's not the same as Clerk, but it's pretty much the same thing if you know how to use your chisel ability correctly. Violetta, she is kind of unique. I think Violetta is very weak. Personally, she feels terrible to play unless you're a Violetta main. So the thing with Violetta is that her hitbox is like really bad. Her attack swing is really slow. And her hitbox for her body is so thick because she's got that big booty. And it's really difficult for her to, when she breaks a pallet, like her vision is so low to the ground because she's like, her actual head is like she's crawling, right? So like it's when she breaks a pallet, you can't see anything anymore. You can get really easily juked by survivors if you don't know what you're doing with Violetta. She's really difficult to play in my opinion. A lot of the webs in different places, if you don't know where they put them, they're really hard to figure out. But once you figure it out, like some Violettas put the webbing on the wall and just like they touch the wall to get the speed boost. And I'm just like, oof. The web is so slow too. Like if you're not used to it, the web is, she needs it to catch up to people, but she also generates it really slowly compared to like Galatea statues or like wax artist's wax. It's so, it just feels bad when you're out of spider webs. That being said, like she can do a good job. She has one trick where she can double hit a survivor when you're right before max presence. If you landed a web before and you go to max presence, then it resets the cooldown on your spit. So that's how Violettas do double hits. It's kind of rare, and I don't think it's that common. I mean, it does happen from time to time, and Violettas do plan it out. Her wrapping up people off a chair, I don't think that's a very strong ability. It's kind of terrible. It costs a lot of web, and it's just quicker to web people on the chair. Her spit is good, but it's actually really, really slow, and it's highly telegraphed. Let's see. Her webbing ability is the greatest part about her, but it doesn't really stop her from being looped. You need to land like 2 of those for them to... I feel like until they slow down their movement speed, it's not really great. Otherwise, like just slowing down their movement actions, it's okay if you want to like bait out pallets that way. But again, you have to really know her hitbox for her to be able to do that for you. Undead, let's see. I don't think Undead's very good. He's great at chasing people. He's immune to most stuns. He's fast. I just think that like not being able to chair people, it's a blessing and a curse. Like so he can't really camp anyone, right? So his only option is to be as aggressive as possible. Like so many times he's able to be kited too by tight kiting. If you know how to tight kite, there's nothing he can do. He can try to like jump over objects, but like at that time it's still, he's not going to land it very easily. Like until bees can even block his dash attack. His dash attack doesn't do a detention hit, so even at late game he's not doing too great. Oh, Mr. Egg, thank you for the 100 bits. Hi. Sorry, I'm doing a tier list right now, so I'm a little bit like I'm in my video creation mode. It's crazy compared to wax. With wax, you just hold down the hose forever. You think it's unlimited. Yeah. So with undead, like your energy, it depends. Your dashing is really dependent on your energy, and plus being stunned is dependent on your energy as well. I just think that like the pacing at which undead can chase down the survivor, if he's so weak to tight kiting. The only thing he can do is like catch people who don't know how to kite him with his dashes. He can also catch people off guard with his jump. The jump is a little tricky, but I think a lot of survivors at higher rank, they just know how to deal with it. So I don't think undead is that great of a hunter. Like when the door is open at the very end of the game, people can still crawl out that door. Like even when they go down. And I've had that happen to me multiple times. He can change the location of the dungeon too, but like if you get down near the dungeon, it takes 5 seconds. You have to hit them down, wait for them to wait for your hit recoil to go off, move to the dungeon, and then stick your sword in it and wait 5 seconds for it to change. By that time, survivors have really fast crawling speed against undead. Plus, if you take sticker on top of that, you're crawling at like Mach 10. So a lot of survivors are just able to crawl out the dungeon as well. He's not really good against survivors that can do like a lot of extra healing. Barmaid, psychologist, doctor, like healing is just really strong against him too. I don't think undead is that great of a hunter. Violinist, I feel like, is even worse. Like his things are really easy to dodge. Like I just think that crescendo, you can dodge in between the crescendo lines if you didn't know. But like the violinist, there's a way to make it harder to dodge, but survivors know. Like they just know what to do about it. They'll bait the shot. Basically what violinists try to do, they throw the note further away first, and then the second note goes closer to you, so that the time that the line appears between the two is a lot quicker. And because of that, a lot of survivors that can anticipate that, because they'll see it. It's very obvious. There's a sound cue when they throw it out first. You can see the note, so you have to know, oh, I should avoid here. They'll know to juke it. And by the time you throw out the second note, and if you miss, you're probably going to miss, by the way, because it's a very, very, very thin line. They'll already walk through that pallet. The sound that slows down the survivors, it's okay. Like his first presence ability that lets him pressure from across the map, it's not that great. I mean, it's pretty slow, and it only lasts like a little bit of time. If you can avoid the first few notes, then it's not great. So he gets pretty good at chasing after that, because it slows survivors down quite a bit when they hit them. But again, his chasing ability is not that great. He can be really easily kited. Secondly, I think that his full presence ability, it's strong, but it's not that strong. I've seen violinists get destroyed like one too many times. He's just not very strong as a hunter. And although he's able to double hit and try to scuff them off a chair, like, you gotta think, first of all, you need 2 notes within the span of like, they only last like 4 seconds within each other. And you have to like do it within this wide area. If you're in an open chair, the survivor could just walk circles around you and there's nothing you can do about it, or just wait for your note to disappear. So yeah, if you're gonna try to play violinist, I hope you're good with him. He's just very, very difficult to land double hits on. His chasing is like mediocre, and he has 0 cipher pressure, or like his cipher pressure is like maybe 5% good. Like it's not that great. He shoots notes from across the map, they don't do damage or nothing. Wax artist, I would say wax artist is like S tier. Honestly, I've seen wax artists like just completely destroy teams. I don't really play him too much myself, because honestly he's a little awkward to play on PC, but because of like how much you have to hold down his abilities to make them work. But wax artist is really strong, mostly because the meta right now is bully hunters. It's bully hunters and get away from them. And wax artist is good at chasing those 2 people down in spades. Like, he's anti-stun, so Enchantress is really bad against him. Batter's not really good against him. Forward, I guess he can do some stuff, but he has some really good tricks he can do to deal with that. So getting people to like 99% wax, switching to hot wax, hitting them, and then hot waxing them. Like there's a lot of really good wax artists out there. Yavska is an S badge wax artist. I know Eli plays wax artist a lot. Highly recommend checking out their streams or YouTube channel if you're looking for wax artist gameplay. I wouldn't say he's like his hit itself is like super OP, because it is strong, don't get me wrong, but it's more so that he's really strong against survivor meta right now. Yeah, so a lot of people might have problems dealing with him, especially if he catches you out in a bad spot. He can block off windows, he can block off pallets, he can block off a lot of things. Like he can block off ciphers. Like he can block off a whole cipher for 16 seconds just by spraying it with his goo. So he's got really strong cipher pressure. It's not all the way across the map like Galatea or Clerk or Dreamwitch, but it's good enough. Like he can lob it. I've seen him lob it from like one side of Moonlit, like one side of that bridge from Moonlit to the other side of the bridge, and I'm just like, that's crazy. So it does go pretty far. The wax is really strong too. So And that wax, it lasts forever. They nerfed it at one point, but then I think they brought it back a little bit. So he's almost got infinite wax. Wuchang, there's a lot of B tier hunters. Maybe I'm just like a little too generous or a little too not generous. But Wuchang is pretty weak as a hunter. Mostly, he suffers from like a lot of hunters that don't have any abilities at first presence. He can use his umbrellas to juke a little bit, but generally, if he had his first presence ability earlier, I think he would be so incredibly strong. But because of that, he doesn't have anything to chase with. He only has his like little umbrella teleport, but it's super long of a cooldown. It's 36 seconds. If you're trying to chase with white, good luck. If you're trying to chase with black, it's a little bit easier because of how fast you can break pallets with and how fast you hit attack recovery with. I almost always just stay in black form exclusively because the white form one is like so tricky to get down. The timings are just a little bit difficult. If the conditions aren't exactly right for white, I almost never go white. So Wuchang, he's strong once he gets his presence, but you know, the same with Nightmare, same with Lucino, same with Hellember, same with Hermit. If you don't have your first presence ability, which is the main part of the game, then you're not going to do very great. And keep in mind, again, most games are won or lost within the first minute 30 of the game. You'll know whether a hunter's getting a tie within the first minute 30, and you know whether you lost within the first 2 minutes. Like, it's that quick. How many ciphers are getting done in that time period, how many survivors get down, those are all information that goes into that decision making. So yeah, here's my hunter tier list for 2023.